agenda on the Diamond featured two of the best teams right here in the Northland. Second-seeded Esko looking for revenge against top-seeded Marshall after the Hilltoppers handed them their very first loss on the season just a couple weeks ago. One of only two losses for Esko this year as they face off against Marshall's ace Owen Marszalek. Bottom first, and bags are loaded for Tanner Carlson. He rips one into shallow right field. And the relay isn't made. Hilltoppers grab that important first run of the afternoon. And it's the same score until the fifth inning. Bases loaded again for Carlson, and his hot shot goes right past the glove of the second baseman. Two more runs come home to make it 3-0 for Marshall. Same inning still for Aiden Westerber, who smacks the ball the opposite way, gets a friendly roll past the outfielder. Two more runs score as Marshall breaks it wide open at 5-0. Junior pitcher Owen Marszalek threw a complete game shutout and only allowed one single hit in 7 total innings. And against this Esko squad, that is quite impressive. Marshall with a statement win over Esko, 9-0. They advance the Section AAA Finals tomorrow against the winner of this next game, which was, of course, Esko against the Proctor Rails. Esko desperately looking for their first run of the day, and who else but Sam Hagen to get things rolling. A great shout out to right field at the bottom of the first will be an RBI double for Hagen. And Bryce Hipp coming on home. Esko takes a 1-0 lead. Up next to the plate is Isaac Sertich. He gets a grounder up the middle. Rails will make the play at first, but Mr. Hagen now in scoring position for Esko. So Finn First will try to get the job done, and he does just that with a hit down the left field line. And Hagen scores the second Esko run of the game. The game would stop at the bottom of the third due to lightning. We'll, of course, keep you updated as both the storms and the results roll on in.